Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So, grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. Today's guest is someone who discovered that you don't have to fit into the world's expectations to know that you truly belong. I'm Dia, your host. Get ready to be inspired and blessed. Help me welcome our guest today, Val Kleppen. I got the last name right. I almost messed up the first name. Val Kleppen. Hey, Val.
Hello, Dia. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so glad you were able to join us. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about our guest. Val is a wife to her Prince Charming hubs for over 2 decades, a mother to little miss and little man who faithfully endure her homeschooling dance parties. And she's a bereaved mother to her daughter, Harlan, who was born sleeping in 2013. She lives in central South Dakota, where she enjoys homesteading and building a life rooted in family, faith, and purpose. Val's been writing and speaking since 2008, sharing encouragement with women through ministry events, small groups, and support communities. In 2023, she stepped into a new calling as the host of the Motherhood Experience Podcast. Ooh, listen to that. I'm sure it's full of wisdom, where she now encourages moms every week with honesty, compassion, and faith-filled perspective. We all need that. For much of her life, Val felt like a square peg in a round hole, trying to figure out where she fit as a corporate life mom, a work-from-home mom, a homeschool mom, and a grieving mother. But through her journey, God used even her deepest pain to shape a heart of empathy and connection for others. Today, Val shares a powerful realization. You don't have to fit into someone else's mold to belong. Sometimes belonging begins the moment we embrace who God created us to be. Please help me welcome Val Kleppen. So glad you're here.
Yes, I am too. This is a divine appointment, Dia.
Absolutely. Are there any additions, corrections, or subtractions from that introduction?
You know, you covered me pretty well. I feel like that should be the intro of my book one day when I write it. That was well done.
Okay, I'll send you a copy. Well, this is the Belonging Podcast, and I invite guests on here to share their story of belonging, either how they found it or how they've created it for other people. And it sounds like you've done both. So I'm just going to give you the mic and let you have it. Go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I did feel like I struggled for most of my life trying to fit in everywhere. I didn't want to fit into just a certain group or a certain mold, or I wanted to fit in everywhere with everyone, be a part of all of the things. And that only led to stressing me out, I would say. I'm a firstborn child, and so if I can't do things perfectly the first thing I try them, I consider that I have failed and am a failure and will always fail at that thing. Now, that is something that the Lord has shown me that I feel like when I do this. And so I'm a work in progress, and that is not as derailing as it once was. But as a child and growing up and trying to pave the way for my younger sister and make family relationships smooth and friend relationships smooth and be friends with everybody, it just spread me so thin. And I really did not feel like I fit in anywhere or with anyone. Even in auditioning for parts of the school play when I didn't get Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and I ended up as Auntie Em, I was devastated because I thought, man, I can't even act as someone I'm not correctly. And so it just really was a lot of pressure on myself. And even in high school, I would end up having lunch alone because I was just trying to fit into every single group that no group in particular would give me invitations, because they just assumed that I would be off with another one of the groups that I was trying to be cohesive with. And so while I was friendly with everybody, I wasn't friends with everybody. And that was something that it took me a long time to realize, how actually trying to fit in everywhere was destructive rather than inclusive. And it was holding me back in a lot of ways. And so as I started dating and dating the wrong people, because I was just trying to, be loved by someone, and then eventually meeting my husband and getting married, the Lord just started teaching me things. And it wasn't about fitting in with everyone and being accepted by everyone, but I had to have a relationship with the Lord first. Once I realized that, and praise God, He showed that to me, then when my relationship with Him was strong, I started to have these really deep, meaningful relationships with other people, with friends from church, with I still have a best friend from the 8th grade. We became friends, but our relationship started to change and just go a lot deeper than in 8th grade or high school or anything. And especially with my husband, when the Lord wasn't the center of our marriage, everybody could tell, I think.
You didn't need the neon lights and
Right.
billboards.
Right. And so really just focusing on the relationship with the Lord, and He would put people in my path. He would put situations before me that I know, if I wasn't in a partnership with Him, would have gone so very differently from how they did. But I was being used to bless other people. I was being used to encourage and edify and even coach other people as this, I didn't know anything, but the Lord would give me words to say to these people because I had a relationship with Him first. Once I started realizing that, I was like, you know what? I don't have to fit in everywhere and be everything to all people. I just have to walk in obedience with the Lord, and He's going to put the right people and the right situations before me. And that is when I really felt like I belonged, because I belonged to the Lord, not to anyone else's standards or preconceived notions of who I should be or what I should be doing. Even in our marriage, our relationship changed for the better once I gave up the reins, I think, of trying to control where we should go and how we should fit and all of the things. And so,
because you knew how to make it perfect.
yes. And that is still sometimes, but not so much anymore. And I do love, I'm in my 40s now, and I do love looking back and just kind of laughing at myself at how hard I tried to make things work in the weirdest ways. And now that I'm 40 something, and I just love getting older, and sometimes you really don't care so much about things that used to be a really big deal. And it's such a blessing. So yeah, I think over time, really, when the Lord is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and just fits everywhere, right? And when you walk with Him, then He molds you to fit exactly where you need to, how you need to. And sometimes it's not how you expect to. So it's important to hold that with an open hand, I think.
Mm-hmm. Has it ever been uncomfortable for you?
Oh, girl.
That was somewhat of a rhetorical question. I just was opening up that part of it.
Right. Yeah. So there has been this experience multiple times in my life that I know the Holy Spirit is telling me to do something, because my body gets hot from the tip of my head to the tip of my toe. And it's like a slow progression of just this heat through my body. And it usually makes my stomach turn, because it's something I don't want to do. And so it's something like, you need to go tell this person something, or you need to go pray for this person. And I could know them. I could not know them. It could be something easy to tell them. It could be something difficult to tell them, but I never want to do it. And I always know that it's Him when that happens. And it happens often. My husband likes to joke and say, "You've got a red phone to Jesus." And I'm like, well, He's got my number. That's for sure. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yes. But after you stepped out in obedience.
Yeah, after I step out in obedience, the blessing comes. I mean, to see the look on people's faces when they're like, how did you know? I remember one time, Dia, I was speaking at a women's event, and after the Friday night session was over, I had told people, if you would like prayer, I'll be standing over here. You can come and pray with me. And I had many women come up and pray with me after that. But there was this one woman who was sitting down, and she was like physically handicapped, so she couldn't get up and move. And I felt the Lord tell me to go pray for her. And again, like I had just prayed with so many women, and I had just spoken for a session as well. And so I was like coming to the end of my energy rope.
Yes.
But I knew I was supposed to pray for her. So I walked over and I sat down next to her and I said, would it be all right if I prayed for you? And she kind of chuckled and said, sure. And I started praying. I'd never met this woman before in my life. I don't even know her name. But I started praying, and I all of a sudden like got these specific things to pray for over her. And I started praying for her family, and that she would experience reconciliation, that she would be able to forgive where it needs to be forgiven, and that people would be able to forgive her. As I'm praying, Dia, she starts laughing, which I took as like a not good sign.
Okay.
It's not typical that people start laughing in the middle of prayer. So I get through the prayer, I say amen, and she looks at me and she goes, how did you know? And I said, I don't know anything, and I don't know what you're talking about right now. And she started to tell me the most heartbreaking story of her family's history, how there were so many broken relationships, how she had been like wanting to forgive them, but not, and also how reconciliation needed to, and that was the word I had used, that, reconciliation in her family. And I'm sitting there trying to hold it together, but I also cannot believe what's happening, which is funny because the Lord does this all the time, but every time it catches me by surprise. And so I'm just kind of sitting there, and I said, the Lord has you on his heart tonight, obviously, because he gave me those exact words to pray for you. I was done praying. Like the line was dissipated over there. He sent me over here to pray with you. And so you just never know what the Lord has in store, who's on his heart at the moment. And to be a tool and a vessel in those times is just so humbling and so exciting. And he's used people in my life in those ways as well. So it's just such a blessing to be able to be that same.
So the point is, you couldn't have been you doing that prayer if you were trying to be somebody else that God didn't intend you to be.
1,000% yes. And once I gave up striving to become that person that I thought I was supposed to be, and just let the Lord use, because it's going to be different every time. Sometimes it's speaking at a women's event. Sometimes it's shopping in Walmart, and someone's going to come into the aisle, and I'm just immediately going to know you need to pray for that person. And so I hate Walmart. I'll just be upfront.
Sorry, Walmart.
Yeah. Sorry, but
it's not also an anti-commercial, but anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the only places that we have locally to shop as well. So it's like I don't have a choice, but it's a fertile ground for the Lord's work to be done inside of Walmart. And so I could be snooty and just refuse to go or have things delivered to my house or whatever, but I also know that the Lord is going to work in Walmart. You know what I mean? And so
totally.
Yeah. So we're going to Walmart.
People in picking vegetables are going to look at you and then start spilling out their whole story, their whole life story.
The amount of times that happens, it's insane. And I have people come up to me, and I'll ask my husband, like, what is it about me where people just, it's like they spill their guts? And he's like, well, it's the Lord. Like, it's not about you, Val. It's the Lord has made you hospitable enough for these people where they just automatically feel like they can trust you. And it's not, I don't say like, oh, what is it? Like, why do people keep spilling that? It's not like that at all. I love it. But also I don't have any idea, like, because I'm not going to go spill my guts to anybody just because,
Does it say, talk to me on my forehead? What is it?
Yeah, but I do. I love that people can feel comfortable enough with me and around me to be able to open up like that and foster some encouragement and even some healing in those cases.
Right. So you're helping them find their place to belong because you're encouraging them to be who they are.
Yeah. And, I feel like struggling my whole life, Dia, to feel like significant, I think. if I didn't have a comfortable place to sit or like a routine, even because all these friend groups in high school and stuff, like there was a routine. They did the same thing every day with the same people. And I just never had that. But I'm glad for that now. I'm glad for that because, and I think after struggling in that for so long, it's just natural for me to approach people and, hey, this is a safe space to be authentic. You don't have to try to be someone. You don't have to try to fit into any shape or mold. You can just come, tell me your story, and we're going to work through it together in prayer.
That is amazing. Now, I want to take a quick break to talk about your homesteading. What does that mean? Is that how you grew up? And what does that look like
No. So I
every
joke.
day?
I joke and say that I grew up on Taco Bell and antibiotics because that is basically how my mom raised me. And my mom will say, first of all, she'll say that's not true, but it is. And second of all, she'll say, like, I don't know how you're my daughter because she is not interested in any of these things. Like, I cook from scratch. I use cast iron. We've got chickens. We raise our own meat birds and turkeys. And, I would love to have sheep and a cow, but my husband is like, slow your roll, Val. That's not going to happen. So we've garden and we grow our own produce, and then I can all of our produce and salsas and soups and all of the things. Like, I just love every single piece of it. And I was not raised that way at all. I think there's some generational skipping going on, but I'm also the only one in my family who lives this way, kind of the black sheep of it. But I'm raising my kids to do it. I don't know.
That was a question I was going to ask. How is that affecting your kids? Are they falling in line, or what got you started on this journey of being so a Proverbs 31 woman?
Well, thank you for that, first of all. I honestly don't know, except for the fact I think it started when I learned how I was raised on margarine, and I learned how margarine was made. And I was like, we are switching to real butter immediately. That's a given. And then I just kind of started going down this rabbit hole. My grandmother, she gardened and she canned and she knit. She actually taught me how to knit. And so maybe kind of some of that nurture for the interest came from there. But I just remember, especially when I was pregnant with our daughter, and then I started making all of the baby food. I didn't buy baby food. I made baby food. And I was like, well, this is just like the very next step. Once you start looking into how food is made and packaged and sold to us, is not even food by the time it gets to us. And then it's
As
just
they
like,
say, when you see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. And so it just kind of like one thing led to the next. And now we're on 32 acres outside of town and just gardening and planting fruit trees every time the ground is unfrozen enough to to dig into. And this is definitely my lifestyle and my choice. I think my husband would prefer something that did not require as much work from him, but he's my muscle. And the kids, I think, tolerate it. I think they appreciate it. And they've told me as much, even, when they grow up and they have their own place and here's what they want to do. And I don't think they love, helping me clean out the chicken coop or anything. But even I don't love that. It's just a part of having chickens. And so when my kids see eggs from the store versus eggs from our backyard, they're like, ugh, like, why do people buy
Why do
eggs?
people eat that? Yes. Well, and also talking about training them, you homeschool, right?
Yes.
What a fabulous opportunity.
I swore I would never homeschool.
Yeah, I did too.
I said homeschool people are weird.
Yeah.
And, I've struggled enough in my life to fit in. We're not going to homeschool as it is, right?
Right.
And then the Lord clearly directed us to homeschool. I stuck my head in the sand. My husband did all the research on curriculum and all of this, and we started homeschooling. And we've been homeschooling for 8 or 9 years. I can't keep it straight now. And I can't imagine my life without homeschooling. I'm so grateful that the Lord put that in our path.
So right there. I could tell that we could go on forever, but it's time for a break. So we'll be right back with my fantabulous guest, Val Kleppen. Be right. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we are back with my inspiring, amazing guest today, Val Kleppen. And if you've seen any of my episodes, you know I have my 3 favorite questions to ask. Number 1, Val, what do you consider is your greatest accomplishment?
Yes. First, I like to say I would not be able to say that this is my greatest accomplishment were it not for the Lord working in my life. So he gets all the credit and the glory for it. But I would say, just from my own experiences, having the ability to make other people feel comfortable, feel seen, feel like they belong is something that I have found follows me from different places that we've lived, different places that we're involved with, different organizations or friend settings, social settings, all of the things. I don't love large groups of people. Like, I am very much an introvert. I recharge when I'm alone by myself, but having the ability to approach other people and just make them feel welcome, to provide a hospitable environment, no matter where we are, whether the environment itself is hospitable or not necessarily, being able to make them feel seen, loved, cherished, appreciated, I think is something that the Lord has really blessed me with and helped me with in every location that we've been in. And so that's what I would say my answer is for that.
And I appreciate that you acknowledge that God's the one doing it. So it's almost like your greatest accomplishment is being obedient. Just being there when God calls you, and you get to go along on the ride as God is working this out. So it is God accomplishing it, but saying yes, that's the big accomplishment.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be a really scary thing, and all the time.
Yeah, I like how you change that. It's not sometimes, it's all the time.
Yeah.
What, God? It's kind of like when God calls you to homeschool and you go, wait, is there anybody else up there?
Yeah. It's like a second opinion, please.
Yes. Second opinion. So actually, maybe your greatest accomplishment is being obedient.
I mean, that's a very humbling thing to think about, for sure.
Yeah, because God has all these amazing things he can do through you because of how he made you and how he already gave you the gifts to accomplish the things he's lined up for you to do. And you just have to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all just have to say yes.
That's a good word.
That's yes. Yes. Okay, I guess nobody else is up there. Next.
Yeah. Yeah. Some days.
Some days, yes. Second question, and we kind of have talked about this throughout, well, because it's the Belonging podcast, but what makes you feel like you belong?
Yeah, I love this question and the answer that it made me contemplate, honestly, because I tried for so long to just fit, to find where I fit. And it turns out I don't really fit anywhere. But just because I don't fit does not mean I don't belong. And there is a difference. And I think in distinguishing that difference, number one, is so crucial, because we were all designed, created uniquely with unique purposes and gifts and talents, like you've already touched on. And so I find that when I go somewhere, if I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here, why, the Lord always puts it into perspective. And especially when we're with other believers, we do belong there because we're all family. I remember one story in particular, if I can share it quickly.
Please.
I was asked to help with, put on this women's event. And this was in 2010, goodness, I can't remember. I think it was 2012. I think I was pregnant with Harlan when I was asked to serve on this women's ministry team, and they were putting on this women's event, and they're going around the room and they're saying things like, we need someone to be in charge of snacks and food and refreshments, and we need someone to be in charge of decorations. We need someone to be in charge of like the souvenir gifts that the women will walk away with. And I'm just sitting there going, God, I'm not good at any of this. And I don't want to be in charge of those things. And the whole meeting, I'm like, why am I here? They asked me to volunteer. I said I would. What am I doing here? And at the very end of the meeting, the women's ministry director said, and we need someone to MC the event. Dia, my hand shot up in the air, and I said, that is exactly why I'm here. I will be your MC. And that launched the whole speaking career from that point forward, and it filled my cup so much. And I just knew, like, sometimes you just got to give the Lord the entirety of the time before he reveals why you're there. And I went from thinking, I don't belong in this room, I don't belong helping this, to being, that is exactly why he has me sitting here. So sometimes it just takes a little patience on our part to figure out why and how we belong where we are.
It's so easy to forget that God is way up there and can look down and he sees the whole picture.
Yes.
Like he knows how the book ends.
Yes, exactly.
He knows all the parts. And he's, I mean, if you're a writer or pay attention to scripts or anything, and you wonder, how are they going to bring all this together? And they do. Well, God's got every single detail of every single life and every single day, hour, minute of everybody's, the whole world.
Yeah.
And he knows how it's going to all come together and fit. And all the people that were at that meeting, God had to start getting them there from when they were 2 years old. You know,
exactly.
I mean,
Yes.
it's amazing when you, and so why is it that we hesitate?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's a control thing or if we think we know better or if it's just in our nature that we have to argue things all the time. I'm not sure, but the Lord's ways are not our ways, and they are always better. So it's just a lesson that we need to remind ourselves of over again.
We have the opportunity to be reminded of it multiple times.
Yes, indeed, yes.
And God is patient, and he keeps teaching it to us, even though it's like, didn't we already go through this again?
Mm-hmm.
Yay, thank you, Jesus, for being patient with us.
Yes.
And understanding our humanity.
Yes.
Bless his heart. God love us.
Exactly, yes.
As they say in the South,
Right.
God love us. And that's not a compliment. Okay. The third question is, what is your favorite quote?
This one has been my favorite quote for many years, and I think will be my favorite quote until the day I die. It is Elizabeth Elliot, who said, sometimes life is so hard, you can only do the next thing. Whatever that is, just do the next thing. God will meet you there. That is just a mantra that I have to remind myself of over, especially knowing what Elizabeth Elliot lived through.
I was just going to ask you, for the listeners who possibly do not know Elizabeth Elliot, why is this quote from her so impactful? And then related to your experience.
Yeah. So, oh, goodness. Well, Elizabeth Elliot was a missionary, and she married Jim Elliot, and they were called to be missionaries in South America. Yes, in Ecuador, I think is where she started. Okay. And then they ended up feeling led to reach this super remote Aboriginal group of people. And they were, this was a very hostile tribe, and they just felt led to continue to find ways to reach them. So all of the husbands, I think there were 5 or 6 of them, made contact with this tribe of people, and it was a pleasant contact. Everybody was excited. They were hoping they would come back. When they did come back, they murdered all of the husbands who were sent there to be the missionaries. So the wives had to learn of their husband's brutal murder. Elizabeth and her husband Jim had a baby girl, and so now she's a widow and a single mother. And then the Lord worked it out and called her. She actually went and lived with the very tribe of people who had murdered her husband, and she was a missionary to them for several years. The story is incredible. She's written so many books. I would encourage you to read any one of them. She's just a wealth of peace and hope in the Lord. And so she endured tremendous tragedy and heartache and still moved forward in serving the Lord first. And how that kind of relates to me, or why it resonates with me so much, is our middle daughter, Harlan, was stillborn, as you went over in the introduction. And, she was our second pregnancy. Everything was textbook. And then we get to the hospital when I'm in labor, and we're told that her heart is no longer beating. And so we went from planning this baby shower and homecoming to having to plan her funeral before even leaving the hospital. And just the road of grief that we endured after that, having a 3-year-old daughter at home who was looking forward to having a baby sister. And now she just has a mom who cries all the time. And I just can't believe, honestly, that we walked through such a dark road. But the Lord led us. He carried us. And so then after that, we started an organization called Harlan's Heart to help other bereaved families. And we served other families and led support groups and all of the things for 7 years before we moved here to South Dakota. And so, Elizabeth Elliot's quote of, when life is so hard, because we know John 16:33 tells us, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I tell you these things because I have overcome the world. And so when she goes on to say, whatever that is, just do the next thing. Like, you can only put one foot in front of the other. And then her ending that quote by saying, God will meet you there, is the encouragement that we need to hear from time to time, but also the affirmation that we can do hard things. God will meet us in the hard places. And he does not need us to have it all figured out or solved or fixed or reconciled by the time we get to him. He's going to meet us there. And that, I love that quote. I love Elizabeth Elliot so, so much.
Well, thank you for sharing that tender story and your response to your grief, to yet again be there for other people is such a blessing. God has definitely gifted you in the ministry to other people. And how long did it take to, you never get over it.
Yeah.
And it's always there, but how long did it take you to go through or did you go through the standard stages of grief?
Yeah. I get kind of defensive about that because I feel like grief is not linear, and I don't feel like it really comes in stages. I feel like it's more of a scribble situation where everything will lap over on itself and circle on top, and you feel multiple of them at the same time. And it's just a hot mess, basically, is what it is. And I would say, honestly, I remember on her 7th birthday was probably one of the hardest birthdays for me out of all of them. Like, her first birthday was so super hard, and her 7th birthday was as hard as the first birthday for me. But something shifted. And maybe it is because there's significance in the number 7. Maybe it's just because it took that long for the Lord to really shape the next stage of our lives. But something shifted in that day, and I still cry. I still miss her. I still get emotional thinking about it. Sometimes I can't believe it's been 13 years because it just still feels so close. And other times I have to be like, oh, wow, it's already been 13 years that we lost her. And I just think that the Lord continues to give us people and situations that just meet us where we are and help us work through it. I remember when her birthday was on Easter Sunday, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I could not function. I could not stand up in church. I was such a wreck. And April is still hard for me. But at the same time, knowing that the Lord carried us through that, and knowing that there are people that we know and love who we never would have met otherwise, that would never be in our lives otherwise, people that I've been able to help and comfort and come alongside who are so special to me. I just did an interview on my podcast a while back with a woman who we hired her husband as a stand-up comedian to come and make us laugh. This group of bereaved parents, come to find out, when I hired this man, I said, here's the deal. This is not your typical invitation, probably. We're a group of bereaved parents. We cry all the time. I would like to do this fun event where you're a comedian. Out of all the comedians I could have chose, Dia, he messaged me back and he said, our first daughter, we lost her after my wife delivered her. I would love to come and be a comedian for your group of bereaved parents because I am a bereaved parent. Could not believe it. But the Lord worked even in that. And so I interviewed his wife on the podcast already, and just the many, many connections that he has made. And he is a God of redemption. And so was that the hardest and darkest journey of my life? Absolutely. Does he still continue to redeem it every day? Yes.
And there's so much depth to what you can offer other people. You know, like scripture says, comfort with the comfort with which you've been comforted.
Absolutely.
You can't, it'll be okay from somebody that doesn't even have children. That's not going to work.
Yeah, you're so right.
Oh, and yet again, you are being you obediently to who God made you to be and saying yes, I guess all the time, but most of the time anyway.
Maybe it's not my first answer, but I get there eventually.
But eventually you get to the yes and all the people that you are able to impact. Wow, there's going to be a big, or the expression going around, let's make heaven crowded.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Let's make heaven joyous. And I mean, the angels rejoice when one soul is found.
Yes.
And they're just, and I think they rejoice when one gets closer to God because of just taking that one step, do the next thing, getting closer to God.
Yeah.
And God blessed you with a son.
Yes.
The next year. And that had to, I mean, you can't replace, but it had to help.
You know, it did heal me in a lot of ways I wasn't expecting. It surprised me in many ways. My son is so much like me.
Oh, and that can be a challenge.
And I mean, we have our moments, but he's just so fun. He's so witty. He's so clever. And it's like he outsmarts me, and I'm not okay with that. But he's just so much like me. And I see in both of my children how they like reflect their parents. They reflect both my husband and I. And I just think sometimes, like, when the Lord looks down and sees, like, that Val, that was a good one from her, that one. And I just appreciate that so much about how he designed family, how he created us in his image, and we get to do the same. And it's just such a blessing. I love it so much.
That is amazing. Well, the time has flown by. And before we close, do you have any final words for our listeners?
I think I would just love to say, don't spend all of your energy trying so hard to fit in, because as I said earlier, you may not fit, but that doesn't mean you don't belong. And so I would just want to encourage anyone who's listening, who's kind of struggling with maybe the season of life they're in, or they are trying to reconcile something that happened to them previously. You don't have to make it work. You are not responsible for making it work. Surrender it to the Lord. He is going to work it out, and you always belong with him.
And how can people find more about you?
Yes.
Oh, let's see. Your website.
Yes, please come to themotherhoodexperience.com. You can learn more about me there. You can sign up for the email newsletter there, and you can hear from my guests on the podcast every week. We release a new episode where it's like a free masterclass for me, where I just get to sit at the feet of other moms and learn from them, learn their stories. It's the greatest assignment the Lord has ever given me. So yes, visit me at themotherhoodexperience.com.
Motherhood Experience. Wow. That sounds like good advice.
Yes.
To my amazing guests, thank you, Val. You've been amazing. And to our listeners, belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. This is Dia Irby with Here Where You Belong podcast, signing off. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, You have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.